So you can find the COVID virus in the wastewater. Remember, that's all transported by pump stations. And we can map out for the city where all of these pump stations are. And by so doing, we can also plot it on a mapping where we have mapped for the city by census tract the percent vaccination.
Wow.
So we have all of that. We also have mapped for the city of Chesapeake based on what's called Health Opportunity Index. And this is very closely associated with vulnerable populations because it's taking into account race, poverty, access to insurance is taken into account. Some of these components that are very definitely associated with higher vulnerability for COVID. So the cool thing is we can overlay all of this so that they're doing testing in the pump stations for COVID. The research, not by us, but by actually academic institutions, has shown that you can see an increase in COVID in the wastewater about a week before you're going to see an increase in COVID activity in the community. It's not just important from an academic perspective. It's important for the citizens in that area to know, because then we can share with them, this is actually what's happening where you live. This is not something that's theoretical or academic. It's something that's happening in your neighborhoods. And, you know, that can be a whole lot more persuasive when people can say, oh, this is where I live. It's not imaginary. And people can be more receptive then to doing the appropriate protection and hopefully getting vaccines.
And you may remember a couple of months back, we spoke with HRSD environmental scientist Kyle Curtis to learn more about this process. And it was really interesting to find out that testing wastewater was actually nothing new for HRSD, making it that much easier for them to jump right into the testing at the start of the pandemic.
With this work, we were in, HRSD specifically was poised to like really jump into this work because we have a molecular lab here and some molecular biologists that are really good at this, and we were already doing it with other viruses. And so with, you know, the coronavirus pandemic coming out, there were a lot of other researchers who already knew about this field, and the field is called wastewater-based epidemiology. And so that's the broad idea of just using wastewater to characterize what's going on in the community. You know, so there's famous examples of this being used with really high efficacy for things like polio, right? So you go to eradicate something like polio, and then rather than go along and test everybody in the community, you can test the wastewater, right? Because it's another one of those things where you'll shed it there. And at this point, when it's almost eradicated, you just want to know, like, is it anywhere? And there's other really good examples of this. But anyway, the folks that knew about wastewater epidemiology already said, okay, the virus is coming along. We're learning more about it, really early days. Does it infect any portion of the gut that would, you know, result in you shedding it in stool? And once that was confirmed, which is, you know, pretty early on also from clinical data, then we all kind of just jumped right on it. And to get back to your original question, yes, we compiled it. You know, once we felt confident in the tests, we compiled the data and we routinely send it to our health department.